This podcast has mature language, not intended for underage viewers.
Street cred sports. Street cred sports. I'm crossing over. I'm Euro stepping.
Hello, this is Keenan of Street Cred Sports Training, and welcome to another episode of Time to Ball. This is episode 45. It is probably going to be my last episode. I'm probably going to get taken off the air after today, and it's probably going to lead to some other things, which I'm really cool with doing, because sometimes you have to have conversation to get things out in the air. But I hope everybody's been doing well. It hasn't been like cold. We got a little taste of it, and once it dropped below 50, I tell people I'm a 50 person. Anything below 50, and I don't want to fool with it. Was like, man, I sure wish it would warm up again. Not really understanding and thinking in that moment about how hot it was. And as soon as I said that, it got warm again, and I was like, oh God, I just need a little in between. So it hasn't been too hot. I mean, it's been hotter than what it normally is for this time of year. So it hasn't been too bad, but it's hotter than what it usually is. So things are going good. Got the start of basketball season and everything. I actually did something, put out something on my Twitter with just, highlighting all the different programs. Now, I'll say this because I know it's hard to say when you're like typing this out on Twitter or social. Like, I'm sure there's some programs that, and some people be like, oh, well, why didn't you put out on this school? I said, well, look, this was based on relationships that I have with those high school coaches to ask them to send me the information. In the past, I've reached out to high schools. I reached out to all high schools with letters saying, this is what we do. This is what we're trying to accomplish. We want to be, of service, try to help your program. And I was shunned by some of those programs. No response. No, hey, appreciate you reaching out to us. We're good. But if we let you know, if we need something, we'll let you know. To me, that's communication. I always decide that if I don't want to do business, I'm at least going to reach out to you and tell you, like, look, I'm good. Future comes up, I might look at doing it or things like that. But not responding to me, and this is just my opinion, not responding to me is kind of a sign of disrespect, because you don't respect that person enough to at least let them know that you're not interested, right? So I try my best to always respond if someone's asking me to do something or be a part. So in a sense, if I didn't write up on that high school, doesn't mean that I don't like that school. I don't like that coach. There's one, maybe two that I probably wouldn't write up on because, I've had bad experiences with that coach. And yeah, I know it's about the kids, but that person was disrespectful. So I won't fool with that program, and I'll let that person know if it ever comes to such. But the other ones, if I didn't write up on your school, it's because I don't know your coach. Now, if you want me to write up and do what I've been doing, reach out to that coach, give them my information, whether it's my my cell phone or my email, and have them to reach out to me, and I'll send them the information, and I'll be more than happy to do it, because I'm not trying to miss people, okay? I'm really not, but I learned a long time ago not to really fool with people that don't fool with you. You know what? I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it the way my pappy used to tell me. Don't fuck with somebody who don't want to fuck with you. They don't want to fuck with you. That's cool. You just don't fuck with them. All right? Oh, gave me chills thinking about when I was told that, and it carries to this day. Doesn't mean anything bad. It's just, you stay on your side of the fence. I stay on my side of the fence. I'll keep working, doing what I do. You keep working and doing what you do. Not me wishing anything bad, but that's just kind of how, I was raised in some instances. And it doesn't mean that I can never look at dealing or talking with said person, except one, because I tried it on multiple occasions. and I'm done with it. So with the exception of one person, with everybody else, you know what? I'm open because I don't know you, and I'd like to get to know you for that program, coach on the boys and girls side. Why did I do it? Well, I spent the better part of 2023 doing more evaluating and scouting, not just in El Paso. I was in Vegas evaluating and scouting one of the biggest tournaments in the country, Las Vegas, big time. Then I scouted, various events here in El Paso, along with the prestigious area codes Hidden 20 with Chad Growth out of Arizona. And it culminated with me doing Pangos. Yeah, you heard your boy say culminated. I hit the Pangos. Now, the reason for doing all of that was just simply to try to, entrench myself in that world, in that space, learn as much as I could learn while seeing how good I could be with it. And I really felt like I did a really good job. That's what I was told by other scouting services and stuff. So now I feel like if I speak on a program here and tweet it and put the information out with other scouting service and college coaches that have followed me since all of this stuff, I can bring eyes to kids that didn't have eyes before, right? So it's just my part in trying to do this. I'm not trying to say I'm the place to do all of this kind of stuff, but I will tell you what, I have been disappointed with some of the other scouting and evaluating agencies here in the city. It hasn't done what I thought they were going to do. Doesn't mean I don't like them. It's just I've been disappointed. Maybe I need to reach out and talk to them and find out exactly what it was that their goal is, because I kind of thought it was supposed to be something based on what I read about the agency, and it hasn't turned into that. So, maybe their focus is something different, but I'm about trying to bring light. So I'm going to do things the way I feel I need to do them. And if it's wrong in some eyes, then somebody will tell me. But so far, everybody's been very appreciative to some of the looks that I've started to give kids. And it's just begun. It's gonna only continue to take shape. So that's just, I guess I'll call that, is that considered the epilogue of the podcast? I don't know. All right, well, okay, so let me get into things that interest me. All right, so here's the first thing. Watching football, watching the NFL, and I was watching the game, and I want to say it was the Bengals. I happened to catch a little bit of the Bengals. No. It was Kansas City. I was watching some of the Kansas City game because it was up at the early, morning hours of Sunday morning. And, Patrick Mahomes makes a Patrick Mahomes throw or quarterback throw. And the announcer says, that's an NFL QB throw. So I started wondering, what is the throw that a QB has to make for people to say they're an NFL quarterback in the NFL? Right? They are, they're quarterbacking for an NFL team, so they are a QB. But it seems to be this narrative that, in order to be considered, I don't know if it's in order to be considered a quarterback or an elite quarterback, there are certain throws that quarterback has to make. Now, I've seen every quarterback at some stage make what these are called an NFL throw. Now, some people say, well, any quarterback can dink and dunk, which is check down. So what check down means, and I'm not going to go all into it, you call a play, your first two or three options are taken because of the way the defense is defending. So you check it down by throwing it down to your running back or maybe your tight end for 2 to 3 yards. A lot of times if you hit them in space, that 2 to 3 yards can turn into 15 to 20 yards, right? So that's kind of how that goes. Okay, so, they figure anybody can do that. Then there's the deep balls. Okay, you can throw 40, 30, 40, 50-yard bombs, and your receiver runs into it and catches it and stuff. There are slants, and there are outs and, comebacks and double moves and all of these different things. So you see quarterbacks making these throws. Then there's the tight window throws where, he put the ball right where only his wide receiver could catch it, or he fit it in between two defenders, right? He threw this one over the shoulder in between the DB and the safety. Beautiful throw, spiral, all of that stuff. I've virtually seen every quarterback make one of those throws. So I really want to know, what is the NFL? What allows you to be considered an NFL quarterback when you make a certain throw? Because I've seen it. Look, Zach Wilson for the Jets has not lived up. I thought the kid with time would get better. Now he's still dealing with stuff with line. And one thing I noticed is any quarterback who's given time that can throw the ball can make really good, accurate throws. So if their line isn't holding up and allowing them to get to the progressions, some of them don't handle that adversity. What do I do now? Where do I scramble? And they lose focus. So I want to know, please, somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, that's in the NFL realm. Actually, I have a few people that I can talk to that, that played NFL and stuff, and ask them that question and see. But if some of y'all feel like y'all know enough, please educate me, because I've looked at it and I hear it every now and then. And it's like, yeah, I guess I would call them panic throws. Some quarterbacks make panic throws. Good ones don't. They kind of know what to do with the ball in that situation. But that's what they'll say. Now, next, I'm gonna bridge this gap. So I need y'all to follow me. Okay, I'm gonna talk about coaches and their personality. Now, I'm not outing anybody or anything. I'm going to use the situation and then I'm going to tie it back in. Okay. So the Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, their now ex-coach Josh McDaniels was let go by the Raiders' old owner, Mark Davis. I think it's Mark Davis. He's the son of Al Davis. Yeah, I believe it is Mark Davis. But he fired him, fired a couple other people. Then he elected to have Antonio Pierce, who used to be a NFL linebacker, take over for the head coaching job. So overnight, when this happened, the Raiders, the team was really joyous. They, there was a sense of relief. They played better. They come out, they play the Giants. Now, again, does this tell me anything? Because they blasted the Giants. I think it was 30-6. So it doesn't tell me anything because the Giants are, have been a bad football team thus far. But the enthusiasm and the stuff that the players talked about was different with Antonio Pierce from Josh McDaniels. Now, Josh McDaniels comes from the Bill Belichick tree. He's offense coordinator. This is his second stint with being an actual head coach. And his first stint didn't go well because of his communication and how he dealt with his team. And there were issues with it, right? It was his personality. And I feel that his personality, he structured his personality to be kind of like what his mentor, Bill Belichick, was. Bill Belichick has apparently a really good personality when he's around his players, but he's a no nonsense. He's kind of a cutthroat business type person where, we don't want to pay $80 million. We can get this player for half that, right? And still produce. Now, there are some segments of people that, and it's growing, that says that Bill Belichick was only successful because of Tom Brady. Before Tom Brady, he was at Cleveland and he did okay, but he got fired. Since Tom Brady, they haven't been good. So that's a discussion for something else. But what I'm saying is, because he's been successful so long, it was what they call the Patriot way. It was his way of doing things. And that way of doing things had worked for him. Josh McDaniels kind of takes a page from that, and that's how he's doing things. And it didn't work in Denver. He said he learned from it and he was going to be a better person. But apparently in Las Vegas, it was the same thing because he alienated his players and his personnel with his personality. Now, maybe he's just that type of person, right? Maybe it's not so much, well, he was trying to do this. Maybe he doesn't have the personality that's really favorable. And it's not really his fault. It's just the way it is. And I think when you're hiring a coach, because this has come out, when you're hiring a coach, you probably need to do a better job with understanding how that coach interacts with players. I am not saying that you got to acquiesce. Yeah, there you go. Acquiesce to players. I'm not saying you gotta, like whatever the players want, you do it as player friendly. No, but you gotta have personality and communication, because you have to make sure these guys are following you. And then you have guys coming out of woodwork saying, I will go through a brick wall for Antonio Pierce, coach. All right. Now, will it last if they lose if they lose the next 3 games? Who knows? But his personality is such that he's going to have more leeway, right? Now, overall, it's about wins and losses. You have to win. If you don't win, no matter how great of a person you are, you're going to lose your coaching career, your coaching position. But I wonder if personality really matters. Now, here's how I kind of tie it in, because I've talked with, some people, talked with kids, I've talked with trainers that I have, and I asked them about, their coach's personality when they played high school, and the ones that are currently playing high school and ones that used to play high school and college and stuff. And I asked them about the personality of their coach. And, they said some of these high school coaches, their personality wasn't conducive. It's flowing today, y'all. It wasn't conducive to input. Now, it doesn't mean they didn't say that it wasn't like they didn't want to hear anything. Here's how it was phrased. Well, if we're running a play and we notice something, we can mention to coach what we see. And coach will say, oh, okay, all right, yeah, that's okay, run with it. What the players did say was there was never any interaction with the coach where the coach would talk to us. Hey, what are you guys seeing? What are you feeling? How are you feeling? Now, I'm not saying every coach should be like that. No, some coaches are, no, this is the play I run. This is what I need you to do. And you don't question it, right? That's how some coaches are. And it's worked for some of them, but you're not going to have the relationship and the trust that you need if you don't, allow players to kind of not dictate, but have a say so, because you're trusting them to run the offense. So I'm assuming that they're smart enough to do what they're doing. If you have a high IQ player, you should ask them sometimes, right? I know coaches used to kind of say, well, what do you see? If you see something, let me know. Because I'm on the floor, and even if you're coaching, you don't always get a feel and a sense for it if you're not actually on the front lines playing. And some coaches wouldn't, or they weren't the type of coaches because their personality didn't, put them in positions to where they could freely talk to the players, because some coaches feel like they have to have like this barrier. You don't want to be friends. You need to be a coach. So it's kind of like a parent. You're going to be a parent, right? So parents can't be friends of their kids because you have to make tough decisions, right? And that's fine and well. But you do have to find yourself in a position sometimes where maybe that child or that player perspective could actually help what you're doing. So it should be where you should be allowed to kind of talk to them. And you see a lot of successful coaches actually have that. Now, they have a set of principles, and you should, these are the things that we do and these are the things that we don't do. Other than that, I'm open. If you see something you can let us know. They enjoyed it, but they really wished the coach would have come to them a little bit more and asked them what they saw, as opposed to them always having to bring it up to the coach. And it was just a weird dynamic. It made me think of that when the whole thing around the Raiders happened, and then I was talking to players and stuff. So it's, not everybody's going to have the same personality, and you shouldn't. You should be who you are. Don't try to be something that somebody wants you to be. But you're going to struggle in some situations. If you are the type of person that's always, allowing players to kind of run the ship, that's going to come back and bite you. If you're the type of coach that's like, you do as I say, and nothing else. You never deviate from the play, even if it's a wide open layup. I don't want you deviating from the play. That's going to work for assignment, but then it's going to bite you. So you have to, I feel like you should have balance. And coaches, if you're listening, if you have those very intelligent players, hey, no, look, I'm not talking about the player that only wants to try to score 30. Coach, I think I'm going to be open on this. Hey, if you think you're going to be open on it, take the shot. And every time they take the shot and they never look for anything else other than that, that's not what I'm saying. But those relationships can really build trust and go so far. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion. Okay, so now I'm going to start something new. This is called a parent rant. This is probably going to get taken off the air. This is going to get me taken off the air. It's not any cursing, but I'm just joking with taking off the air. It's something I haven't done before, but tryouts were the past couple of weeks. Season is starting in high school sports. I had various kids that were trying out, and unfortunately, some of them didn't make it. Some of them surprised me that they didn't make it. But, the parents were ranting. So I just decided, without naming names, I'm just going to put these rants out there. Who knows? Maybe next week I'll have my coach buddies that they'll have coach rants, things that they probably can't say. So they'll, put it out there, put it to me, and then I can say it, right? So today is going to be parent rants. Now, one parent feels like communication should be absolute when it comes to higher ups. The situation, it reminded me of Office Space. I don't know if you ever seen that movie Office Space, but Office Space didn't have absolute communication which led to an employee burning down the place. So basically, in Office Space, if you've never seen it, there was an employee who had actually been fired, but they didn't really tell him he was fired. He continued to work, and they weren't paying him. And every time he came and asked him about his check, they said, oh, they're just trying to figure it out. And this went on for months, if not a year or so. I can't remember how long, but it was messed up. So they just let him work, and they got free labor for him, and they didn't tell him. You got to communicate. Say, man, look, we let you go like 6 months ago. You haven't been paid for 6 months. That's on you. You've chosen to stay here. We already sent your paperwork in. You were let go or whatever. Maybe we give you a little bit of severance check, but we're not going to pay you for doing something that you stupidly decided to do for over 6 months, right? That was such a funny movie. If you get a chance to see it, it's a lot of classic stuff in that movie. But that was in a kind of an example. And what it was talking about was, it was talking about, their child who went for trials, right? So when, you go to trials, there are certain cuts. There's a first level cut. I think there's a second level cut, and then maybe there's a third level cut. It's not the same with every organization. Some will just let you go throughout the process and then cut some kids right then, and that's it. Well, apparently this child made the team, or thought they made the team. Right? They made the cuts. They got on. So then they show up for a scrimmage. They were going to scrimmage. They say, hey, we're going to be there for scrimmage. Be here at this time. The kid shows up, and they tell the kid, nah, you didn't make the team. You're just going to be the team manager. Now, mind you, the kid was on the team last year. Kid played last year. So the kid got better over the summer, right? And for some reason, the kid goes from being a player to a team manager, and there was no communication. Y'all got to do better, coach. You got to do better, man. I mean, I'm not advocating that kid should play. First, I've always believed in transparency. If the kid is not good, that should be told. I try to understand how a kid can be on, whether it's freshman the first year and was productive, and then go to JV or from JV to varsity and get cut. Now, there are certain circumstances. If there were if you got 15 seniors, and you got to stay on JV, or if that person's a senior and they can't beat out that other person, I get that. But if the kid improved, unless the other, players improve dramatically, it's kind of it's a weird dynamic that I think of. And the fact that they led this kid to think that they were there. Now, maybe the coach will say no, they were told. I couldn't see myself going from practice and then showing up the next morning and then finding out that I'm the team manager. I don't see how I can make that leap without knowing. Now, could be something else. I guess there are IDs or something. You got to check this or that. I think you should be a little bit more transparent and say, hey, you know what? You guys need to come with me. Okay, you didn't make the team, and this is why. I really feel like that, because if a kid doesn't make the team, I think you really have a responsibility to say, look, this is why you didn't make the team, A, B, and C. Some kids don't know how to figure it out. I got cut in my 7th grade. I think I've told this story. I was cut in 7th grade. I did everything I was supposed to do. Handled the ball, penetrated, dished out to all the guys for open shots, right? Set screens. Everybody was like, yo, okay, you were doing it. That coach picked everybody else but me. He picked everybody but made the shots. I got cut, went home crying, didn't want to play ball. But I had presence of mind to start to ask myself, what was it that I did or didn't do that didn't make me attractive? And the one thing it was I didn't shoot. It wasn't that I couldn't shoot. I love Magic Johnson. So I was hooking everybody up. Nice moves, penetrating, dishing out. Right? I had layups. I didn't have a driving layup and then decide not to shoot it and try to make a pretty pass. No, these were all created because the guys knew that I could get to the basket, so they were trying to help the defender, and this allowed me to pass the ball to the open man, which is what I did. So I decided, okay, I'm going to make sure that I work on that, and I'm going to make sure I score more. I'm going to take shots that I know I can get while still passing. Worked out beautifully. I self-assessed myself. Not every player is able to self-assess themselves and understand what he or she does wrong or doesn't do right. Okay, so I think it's incumbent upon coaches. I'm not saying you got to write all this stuff down, but you can say, look, man, you need to work on your dribbling. You need to work on your ball IQ, your defense, or whatever it is. Because if you're watching enough to know what they can't do to cut them, that should be what you should be telling them. Man, we cut you because you were on a 3-on-1 break and you passed it to the defender. You didn't pass it to your teammates. You passed it to the defender. You can't do that, on defense, you were playing in front of him as opposed to playing in behind him. So they kept throwing it to him so he could catch, a layup. You don't understand certain basic principles of basketball. This is what you need to work on to get better. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you got to coddle them. Just be real with them. Okay. But that was one. Another one was what they were understanding. They were trying to understand is that, apparently their practice is closed. They're closed practices, coaches, and some coaches are like that. They don't want parents in watching their practices. Practice is supposed to be for the team, the player, they bond, you get after them. And sometimes, if a mom or dad's up there and you're cussing or getting on their child because their child isn't doing something, it could be uncomfortable because as a parent, you want to protect your child, right? It's just, it's just human nature. You always want to protect your child, even when you probably know you shouldn't. You got to let them grow up. You got to let them go through it. You don't want to hear somebody yelling and, getting on your child and stuff like that. So I get why you have closed practices. I get that. Now, some coaches are open. No, parents can sit up there, but, a certain code of conduct. You do this, you got to go, right? I wouldn't want parents in there because if parents are talking amongst themselves, you can hear somebody talking, even if they're whispering. And if it distracts a player or a coach, they hear it, you got to stop to look. And then you got to wonder if your players are focused in on you. So for me, I would probably maybe have, hey, you parents can come in the last 15 minutes of practice or what have you, or the first 15 minutes of practice. But when we get going, I don't need anybody in there. Not because I'm scared, but I need them to be focused on me and not worried about what mom or dad is doing. But the parents' concern was this coach said there were no open practices. No, we don't allow parents in. But apparently there was one parent always in practice. And that parent, was in practice talking and stuff to the coach and, all of this and there. And it seems like it leads to that parent being allowed to kind of make comments during games, or scrimmages to other parents and to other kids about what they feel they should be doing. And parent it's like, you know what, number one, my kid is better than that kid. And yeah, it showed because that kid is balling. Not saying the other kid or the parent isn't balling, but it's like you're over here trying to tell us, tell my kid what to do, and my kid trying to help your kid, right? So the parent was like, you know what? It either it needs to be closed or it needs to be open. And I told the parent, I said, well, why don't you just go? Well, the parent says, well, no, the practices are closed. I said, obviously it's not closed tight, because if it was closed tight, it wouldn't be that other parent in there. You should just go in there and have a seat as well. And then if that coach says, hey, no, nobody's allowed in here, then you can simply look at the coach and say, well, I'll leave if they leave. If it's closed for everybody. If it's open for everybody. Stop letting overbearing and entitled parents be part of the narrative, because it doesn't happen at the next level. You're not gonna be able to go sit at a UTEP practice. As far as I know, you're not doing it. Not when they need the coach. You're not going and doing it. I have numerous coaches say, no, we don't have that. We don't even like recruiting kids whose parents seem to be more over involved in what they should be, because I don't need no emails or no phone calls asking about this and that. Man, you know what? Let me do my job. If you don't feel like, did you ask your kid why they didn't drop down in the coverage that they needed to drop down in and it allowed for a backdoor cut? Did you ask your kid if they knew that on the wing they were supposed to switch, and instead of switching, they stayed at home and allowed an easy basket? No. So we need to have this conversation. I'll teach them how to do it. You stay doing what you're doing, because I'm not showing up at your job, standing over and watching and hanging out while you're trying to do your job. No, I'm not doing that. So you can't do it at mine. So that was a rant, about open and close. Another one was that, calling the coaches ruthless, because, they were saying that this was told to me, the kid didn't make the team. And this was kind of the same line. They were just saying, that they felt like there needs to be a system for this particular coach when if a kid is close, how they make the team, how they get cut. And I know you don't have to go into all the diplomacy stuff, because coaching is kind of dictatorship. This is what I say goes, and that's the way it is. But apparently this one kid, was brought in the office, somebody else was there, and that coach, pulled one kid in and then pulled the other kid in, and that's how they got cut. It's kind of like watching American Idol, where you go to a room and you looking at everybody in the room and you like, oh, damn, man, this dude was horrible. I know I'm finna get cut, right? Or you be like, oh, no, they were pretty good. They were about as good as me. Everybody liked them. I think we're all making it, right? And you wait for them to come in and they tell you and stuff. So, I get it. You don't always have time for that. But yeah, if you put a system in place, hey, you didn't make it, this is why, and this is what you need to work on, I think that would kind of work. I don't expect anybody to hear this and say, I'm going to change my ways. But maybe if there's a thought process, you can do it, because the parent was like, should we fire the coaches based on non-production after a year? Some of the coaches are getting jobs because of friendships with higher ups. I was like, oh, okay. Now look, I have heard that, but you have relationships for a reason. Like you tend to want to hire people that and that's not a bad thing, unless you are hiring someone who is not qualified, or is overly underqualified versus somebody who's highly qualified. That is when it's kind of a blur, but I get it. You all want to hire people and because you know them, you trust them, you get along with them. It's easier. It's an easier flow. So I get all of that. And that was kind of my response. But, that parent was upset with how they felt it was a lack of a system, and the player, their child as well as other ones didn't know what was going to happen and how, and they went in and it was kind of like all of a sudden and stuff. And some kids get intimidated with practice. And what I explained to the parents is, look, you have to also remember that you should have been having your kid play a little bit more in certain situations in city leagues or something competitively. It's really hard to just show up at practice and if you just play street ball and you don't play organized and expect that you're going to make a team unless you're just totally athletic and you just have a natural knack and you know what you're doing. Majority of those kids that show up that have never played organized basketball don't make the team, no matter how good they are, because they don't understand the nuances of the game. Screens, defensive schemes, offensive schemes, running the plays and stuff, right? So I actually have to explain that to parents, and then they get it. The ones that make those adjustments, they have a higher success rate of making the team if they're good enough to make it. Okay, so the last rant was they felt like their kid didn't make it because they felt like the coaches, that particular coach, only put time into the varsity players, and they felt like you got to invest time into the freshmen or in sophomore. Now, I get it because that wasn't the first time I heard that. I've heard it, quite often from different people for different schools. That some coaches they're all about varsity. They don't really put a lot of stock into their developing their freshman team and their JV team, and you can see it. You can see how badly the freshman and JV teams sometimes will run because they don't tend to know the plays as well. They don't focus on them. They focus more on varsity. And I get it, varsity is that, and some coaches say, we're going to develop them as we go. The parent was just kind of like, yeah, I get that, but maybe it shouldn't be the varsity coach. Maybe it should be, the varsity coach making sure that the freshman coach is devoting time to the freshman team. The JV coaches devoting time to the JV team. But what parents sometimes don't understand is, these coaches have lives. They have other obligations. Some coaches coach other sports. They have certain things that they could do, so they might be limited. Plus, the rules in place aren't conducive to allow coaches more time to do this. They kind of handcuff coaches when it comes to things and don't allow them as much time to coach and develop and stuff. But the time that you have, I guess they feel is enough. And some coaches are successful. So why is it that some programs are successful and others aren't? Could come down to time management. I don't know. I hadn't talked to these coaches about it. Sometimes it's touchy situations because I don't ever want anybody to feel defensive. We all can feel defensive. I probably feel defensive, but after the conversation, if you know that it's out of love, it's for a good reason, then you can lower your guard. And I guess it's kind of how it's approached. But those were the parent rants. That was kind of cool. I think I have to listen to that. That might have sounded pretty good. No. I'm being told no. It didn't. It didn't sound good. It sounded terrible. All right, so let me move on to my basketball ideology. Okay, so this was a question posed. I heard it on a podcast, and they were talking about playing on good teams and bad teams. So the question is it better to be on a talented team and not get as much playing time, or play on a team that's bad, get lots of playing time? Okay, now, full disclosure, I'm slightly biased. Okay, for two reasons. Number one, I always will say to me that I would rather that player get experience. There's no better teacher than experience. Sitting on the bench can help, will allow you to see things, right? But that player needs to have experience to play, because the speed, the decision making is totally different in the game than sitting on the bench. And if you've played, and you would know it. I'm not saying that there are coaches that haven't played. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just speaking, saying, look, you have to be in there. Like watching Tyreek Hill run up and down a field fast is one thing. Trying to guard it and seeing it in real life is different. Like watching LeBron dribble down the court and going into guys is one thing. Trying to stop him and being in front of him is a different thing. So, all these kind of situations, guarding Steph off a screen, trying to keep Luka or Kyrie with their handles, trying to guard the Joker, whoever it is, trying to deal with them in real life. Even if you're sitting on, there's TV speed, and then there's you sitting on the sideline speed, but then there's the actual game speed. That is what you need to do. So I'm always going to say, I want my players to have experience, right? At some point, because you can look and make all the notes you want. But once you're in the game, unless you haven't felt the speed of it, you're going to make tons of mistakes. Some players will adjust quicker than others, right? But that's the question. Is it better to be on a talented team and not play as much? Or is it better to be on a bad team and play? Now, this conversation was about, scoring. Like if, you're playing, you don't get a chance to score as much if you're on a talented team because your minutes are limited. But if you're playing on a bad team, you're probably going to get a chance to score as much as you want because of the fact that you're the only person on that team. I liken the question because it went into the experience part with, are players better when they play versus when they sit and watch? And I've had this discussion before, but it was kind of framed in a different sense. So I like to know what y'all think. For me, I'm always going to go on experience. Now, at some point, you gotta go from a bad team to a good team. If you're a bad team and you continue to be a bad team for a long time, then maybe what you're doing is part of the problem. You might need to look at doing something different. So that's a question, let me know what you guys think about it. Okay. All right. Next, my next basketball ideology is, why kids don't read defenses. Now, here's what I'll put into it. So I'm a little bit, showing a little bit more context. I try to teach kids when you're playing against a team and they have they're really aggressive defensively, right? There are pockets where if you're reading how the defense is playing, how aggressive they are, you can use their aggressiveness against them. Like, for example, when a team is rotating, the ball's on the corner. Now the ball goes from the corner to the top and then is whipped to the wing. Those players are rotating. So when that player is rotating out and that player knows that you're a shooter, as you catch that ball, as long as you're ready to pump fake or ball fake, and pretend you're going to shoot the jump shot, that defender is going to go up. Maybe not jumping, but they're going to come out off their heels, and that's going to allow for a drive, okay? Or another type of way to shoot the ball. Right? There are various ways, but let's just say a pump fake, one or two dribble, pull up jump shot. Okay. Now, also, when you're rotating and the ball is coming, if you've swung the ball around a couple of times, when you're catching that ball and you're looking like you're about to swing that ball, the defense will sometimes kind of go into just move mode. They're not thinking anymore. They're just moving because they're anticipating that the ball is going to go here and this is what I'm supposed to do, as opposed to really making sure that they're locked into what you're trying to do. This fake, sometimes like you're faking a pass, will allow two defenders to go in one place. When that happens, now you have an open shot or an open drive for a layup. Okay. So, my question, the original question is, why don't kids read defenses more? Well, I posed the question to some of my kids when I go with them over their defense. I mean, over their offensive set. And a lot of them say that they don't read defense because they're so preoccupied with making the pass and running the offense. So they're robotic, right? Now, really good, talented kids, that I work with. I'm not saying some of these other kids aren't talented. What I mean is that their IQ for understanding is higher. Maybe they're more experienced, or maybe they're just more natural. But in any case, they're more, they're able to process it and see it before it happens. Some kids, I have to actually show them run the offense. This is how everything moves. This is what the defense is doing, right? In most circumstances, some defense is going to try to throw curveballs and do this and this. If that happens, then this is how you counter. But you have to go through it once or twice, showing them how the play works. Then you have to start to show them how to be effective in it. And it's weird at how some kids have been playing a long time, but they're not able to read defenses. They struggle on reading defenses. So it is a weird dynamic with why kids don't read defenses. I think it's more of they haven't been conditioned to understand what they're supposed to, the different ways that they can be effective in their offense. I think kids are taught too much: run the offense, swing the ball, go here, set the screen, cut, come back. We don't have this look, pull it out and redo the play, right? And then you go to a game and you'll hear parents, move the ball, swing, cut, so it kind of becomes this robotic stuff to where some kids don't know what to look at and other kids are just scared. They don't want to make any type of thing outside of what that play is, because you're going to hear the play is going to get an open shot. It can, but number one, you got to have players with IQ to understand how to get that shot. And if you're just running the offense, you might get a look this time. After a while, the defenses are going to be, stopping it. Okay, so I'll make a simple point. If the offenses were working the way some coaches say it would, we get our shots off the offense. Don't you think the scores would be a lot higher in high school games? You would be averaging, 70 points. 70 points, I think, for high school is probably high, because here in El Paso, you don't score. There are not a lot of scoring. They take the air out of the ball, running their offenses far out, and you're getting it. So if a coach says, well, my offense gets buckets, we get buckets within our offense, my question would be, well, how many cycles or how many resets do you have to run before you can get that bucket? How many minutes do you run off the clock before you can get that bucket? Right? If it works the way you're arrogantly trying to tell me it works, then you should be lighting up. You should be scoring every single time, or more than 75 to 80% of the time you should score when you touch the ball. And the scores and the data, if I'm an analytical person, it don't support it. So why not teach your players the concept, the play, but then start to show them concepts, things that they can look for. You're still going to have problems because you might not have kids who have that IQ to do it, but you might start to get better with those things. The only reason I say it is every week I'm showing the kids something about their offense and showing them how to be effective. I'm not showing them, I want you to do this so you can get a shot. No, this is for you to be aggressive, and you're going to create an opportunity for you to score or for a teammate to score. Guess what? Every week, kid comes back and says it worked. Doesn't necessarily mean the shot went in, but they got the look that they wanted. They went in. This defender tried to come in and help. They kicked it out for the shooter. Or they faked the pass out to keep the defender out, and they went up for a layup. but they were given options and shown how to be more aggressive to run the offense, to be okay with running off. And I don't tell players to do this every single time. No, because the defense is going to learn. But you got to know when to pick your spots, and you got to be, okay with maybe it doesn't work sometimes. But don't be robotic. So that's the one thing that I try to preach, is for those kids to not be robotic, because that's the kind of stuff that happens. You just get pass after pass after pass, and there's no shot clock. Shot clock is going to come at some point, and it's going to mess up a lot, because you're going to have to think faster. You're going to have 30, 45 seconds to make a decision. You can't sit up there and hold the ball for 2 minutes. Now, if you make your decision and you get the offensive rebound and you kick it back out, yeah, of course. But think about it. From the time that you rebound the ball, defensive rebound, or you're taking the ball out of bounds, you use 10 seconds to get up, then you got 35. So then you got to get into your set. And now you get in your set, you got to run your play. You can't recycle so many times when there's a shot clock. I think a shot clock will take care of some other things. Not going to fix everything, but it will make your decision making a little bit faster. I trust that. Trust that. Okay. All right. Now since I had a parent rant, I'm going to go on a personal rant. Rant. In my head, I'm thinking that shit sound really cool. But I'll know when I listen, I'll be like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not doing that again. So here's my rant. What I'm tired of in sports, and I'm only going to use sports. I might give an example, but I'm only going to use sports. I'm tired of sports not holding someone accountable. I don't like the two wrongs don't make it a right. Okay? I'm about accountability. So you see it all the time in sports. Football, maybe not as much as in baseball, but in football, and maybe in soccer, in basketball. I'll use football. You'll see a lot of times as the whistle's being blown, you'll have a player that'll push or bump another opposing player a little bit after the window, after the whistle's blown. It's kind of a cheap shot, right? And then that player would turn around and the term is used, retaliate. I don't think retaliate is the term, because when you look up retaliation, it makes it sound like you're seeking revenge. That means that you're going to sit around and think about it, how to get back at this person. When somebody punches you, you don't try to think about how you can get back at them 3 weeks. Then you go into self-defense mode. And you fight back, because, you have to make sure you don't get hit again. Now, after you've calmed the situation or defended yourself, that's kind of where it ends. But if somebody punches you and you punch back, that's called self-defense in my book. If you do it right then, if you leave, go home, stew about it, come back, yeah, that's borderline premeditated. You took yourself out of the situation. You were no longer in danger. I'm talking from a legal standpoint now. You took yourself out of the situation and then you come back. That wasn't self-defense. You weren't in fear of bodily harm or something at that time. Now, if two people, and okay, I have to use this because it happens all the time. If you ever been at the club or just been out, two people start staring at each other. And they get a posturing like, what you looking at? What you looking at? No, what you looking at? And then they get into a fight. Yeah, they both responsible. But a cheap shot on one player, and then that player then acts, to me, that's not retaliation. And that player shouldn't get the whistle. It did happen in the Dallas Philly game. I know it was more, history. It was more tension. Everybody was, going hard. At the end of the play, I can't remember the player's name, but it was an offensive lineman kind of pushed and shoved an Eagles DB or a safety a little bit more after the whistle, and it was a little bit more than what you needed. and then that player turn around and push that player back, you know. And the referee was right there and was grabbing him, like, you know, shaking my head. He's like, man, he just, you know, did you see what he just did? And the referee's nodding his head like, yeah, I see it. You know, come on over. That player didn't do anything else, right? It happened right there. He didn't try to continue to do it. Well, they threw a flag, but they threw a flag on the Philly player. 15-yard penalty. Could have cost him the game, right? And I wonder, was it controlled? Did the offensive player do that on purpose? You will see that some players know that some player is an emotional player that likes to retaliate, and you give them a little something extra afterwards, and then that player retaliates, and then that player gets in trouble. I hate it. I really hate it, because it's, you know, it's everybody's emotional in sports. You're playing with emotions. Some play with more than others. When you do stuff like that, you know, number one, the first thing is kind of a defense mechanism, right? You just kind of, you know, oh, I'm going into defense form. I'm going to push you back to get you off of me, right? You shouldn't be, that second player shouldn't be punished. And you hear it all the time. They never get the first one. They always get the person who responds. And I think it's okay. I think it's bullshit. I don't think that should happen. You know what? Go, if you're going to throw a flag and some other ref, because hell, if the referees see that, I'm sure they saw what happened. But they're like, no, we want to protect the integrity of the game. If you want to protect the integrity of the game, get the person who started it. Now, if they keep going and they keep going and going and you've seen it, yeah, now they both are fighting. But if you push me in the back like hard as I'm coming to a stop and I'm not expecting it, the play is done, you push me and I turn around and push you right back, hey, that should be the end of it. Yo, like, hey, get off me. Okay, now that's just my personal rant, my personal opinion. Some out there will be like, no, you should never retaliate. Nothing ever comes good when somebody retaliates. Well, that person probably ain't been smacked. You know, let somebody just walk up to you without you knowing, smile, and then knock the shit out of you. See if, well, don't retaliate, you know, just leave it alone. Most people are going to turn around and go at you because they're in defense mode. There are some that will leave, okay? They're a bigger person than I am. I'm not doing it, right? That's not me. So that was my personal rant. I'm not going to go more into it, but I think they need to do something about that rule. It happens in NBA. The stupidest call in NBA is called the double foul, where you give two players a foul because one player did something dirty to the other player and the other player reacted. You know, and then you say double foul on these two, double technical foul or whatever. And it's like, nah, man, you go to the video for everything else. Go to the video and see that this player started something. You're going to get that player technical. And then you give this player a warning because you say, hey, I'm going to give you a warning. I'm going to give you a technical. If you guys get into it again and you do something, we're going to give you a technical, right? Or maybe we'll eject you both. But this whole always punishing the second person, that don't fly with me. And they need to do a better job at that. You instituting rules and you got replay for everything else. You got replay for flopping, intentional grounding and all this stuff. You can take a peek. You know, the rules analyst up above can say, hey, you know what? That shouldn't be a foul. It should be on this person. You got technology. You can find it. Okay. Well, I've been on a few rants, and if this was my last broadcast ever because I'm getting taken off the wave because people didn't like this episode, then okay. It's not much I can do about it unless YouTube and the powers that be don't allow me to do a podcast. I mean, I'll do a podcast somewhere else. Now, if everybody take me off the air, then I'll get the message. But no, I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to trip too much. I just try to be truthful. So I don't anticipate that every single person listening to this podcast don't like it. But if you listen, I'm listening to your podcast, man, and I can't stand you. Well, why are you still listening to my podcast? If you heard one and you never listened to it again, you know, that's I'm sorry. You know, maybe shoot me an email. Maybe it was something I didn't do. Maybe you just don't like the sound of my voice. But whatever it is what it is, right? But if you listening to like, this is like your 40th podcast, and every week you come and say, man, you're trash, I can't stand your podcast. I'm like, fuck you listening to it for? Get you a hobby or start your own podcast, you know, and listen to yourself or whatever it is. But, you know, you got to try to live your life and not be so overly concerned with what everybody else thinks, you know, because you're going to have blowback. There's nothing that, man, no, there are people that they don't agree in life. They don't agree with death. In death, like if you die, this is where you go. Some people think this, there are some people that don't think, I don't want to get on the story. There are some people that don't think the earth is flat, right? There are some people that don't think the sun is shining. So there are things that you're like, I'm trying to think of one thing in life that everybody agrees upon. I can't find one. You would think, well, once you're born, Bushwick Bill from the Ghetto Boys, R.I.P., one of my favorite groups. I still listen to the songs. He says in his song, he says, I'm paraphrasing, I can't promise that you're going to breathe life, but I can promise that you're going to die. And I thought to myself, that's it. That's the one thing that everybody can agree on. Is you can't agree that if a lady's pregnant, that the baby's going to be born, but once that baby's born, we can all agree that baby's going to die at some point in life. You know, it sounds bad when you say it, but I understand the meaning of it. No, there are people that don't think, oh no, man, you don't die. You just go here. You do this. You transfer your spirit into another person. The decayed vessel that you were in, you know, ceases to exist. Some people say you don't even die. You leave and you go to another world. Like it's so many different philosophies on what happened when you cease to exist. We don't even cease to exist. We're still there. You're trapped in that body for eternity. Right? You know what's going on, but you're trapped. Which to me, that's the one thing that would really, really, really scare me is if I pass, I'm still of sight and mind. I'm just trapped in my body. I can't move. I can't let anybody know anything. That to me would be, you know, that would be horrible. Right? But I didn't mean to get off into a tangent, but you know, yeah, not everybody's going to agree with each other. So you make your choices and stand on it. As long as you're not hurting somebody else, you know, you should be good. If you don't like it, don't like it. If you don't like my basketball training, go somewhere else. If you don't like my podcast, you know, either create your own, you know, or tune into somebody else. All right. I'm not an all or none type person, but at some point you got to draw the line. So I hope everybody enjoyed this rants and stuff. And, you know, hey, I'm sure it's going to take form. I might have more rants from more parents. I hope I have some rants from coaches. Hopefully my coaches listen to this and reach out. Yo, Kate, man, you need a 4-hour podcast to list all of the rants that I have. I'm going to list them. I'm going to go through them, you know, as many as I can. I don't mind that. I'm the voice of the people. No, I'm not running for office, dog. I stay out of that political stuff. That stuff is bad. Okay, let me get out of here, man. I don't want to go into something I don't need to be talking about. That will surely get me in trouble. So look, you know, we're getting into the holiday stages. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. You know, I'm always looking to advance and evolve. There could be some things down the line. But, you know, I just hope you stay tuned. So we're going to end this, you know, and then I'm going to do my bonus podcast. So I'm going to end it like I always do. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I'm out.
Street cred sports, say it with your chest. Yeah. Go get it from the net. Street cred sports, okay, that's a bet.